Massive explosions ripped through a chemical storage facility in Savannah, Georgia. Colossal flames filled the night sky as a 400,000-gallon sulfate turpentine storage tank burns. For the residents of an apartment complex only 100 feet away, this will be a night they will never forget. Georgia's Savannah River is lined with more than 25 chemical storage use and transport companies. Joanna Burkett has lived near these facilities most of her life.
We never thought about it. They're part of everyday life, and it's something that doesn't go away.
Then, one night, a blast rocks Joanna's building.
I thought my car had blown up, and when I looked and saw the actual tank, then I knew, run for my life.
Joanna and her family flee the house. Emergency calls go out to the Savannah Fire Department. Captain Tony Faust and his crew respond to the call.
It's rather intimidating when you pull up in front of a large industrial tank farm because you really don't know what's in those tanks. And that big question is how hazardous or volatile is the situation?
When they arrive, the firefighters are told by the facility's manager that the burning tank is filled with sulfate turpentine. They begin to douse the blaze with fire retardant foam. But the intense fire quickly spreads to 2 more tanks containing Grequest and other chemicals used in the paper manufacturing process.
You've got flame just bellowing out of it like a spigot running on full blast. It's like fighting the monster.
By morning, the firefighters appear to be gaining control. But then, flames begin to erupt again.
I mean, it looked like it was out, but there was still a chemical reaction going on because of the temperatures. And then it just gradually gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and next thing you know, it's all just like it was before we started. And we're like, okay, we got a bigger issue here than what we thought.
A line of fire engines aims a steady stream of water on the flames. The tanks are melting and leaking a mixture of liquids. The chemical reaction creates toxic black smoke that fills the air. Firefighters begin suffering from sore throats and runny eyes. They are checked for signs of respiratory stress. A hazardous materials team is called in. They find dangerous hydrogen sulfide gas is being produced by the mixture of burning chemicals. Donning gas masks, the fatigued firefighters battle on. Now they must also endure dense, toxic smoke. Joanna and her neighbors watch the disaster unfold from behind the apartments.
Everybody was totally in shock. There was a total fear that swept through this project.
Luckily, the wind is blowing the noxious cloud of smoke away from populated areas. But then the wind changes direction, blowing the toxic cloud back towards Joanna's home. The police rapidly evacuate the area.
We didn't know whether our apartments were on fire because we continuously watched these balls of fire and these explosions for hours.
By nightfall, the supply of fire retardant foam is almost used up. Without it, the chemical fire cannot be contained. Now, with few resources left and the air contamination increasing, firefighters, Joanna, and the entire neighborhood prepare for the worst. An explosion at a chemical storage facility in Savannah, Georgia, has caused a massive fire. Toxic smoke has forced the evacuation of more than 1,800 residents. The burning chemicals combine to produce hydrogen sulfide gas. If inhaled, it can paralyze the respiratory system. As the fire blazes into its 3rd day, the Coast Guard and other government agencies are brought in to help. Oak Tree resident Joanna Burkett has been evacuated from her home since the fire began.
Our lives were total chaos. To leave your home and not have anything but the clothes on your back, it's very, very scary.
At last, a new supply of fire retardant foam arrives from military installations and other fire departments as far away as Florida. Now, Savannah Fire Captain Tony Faust and the other firefighters mount an all-out attack. The blaze still burns inside the melted tanks, which contain over 200,000 gallons of sulfate turpentine and other dangerous chemicals.
when I bunkered up and put on my breathing apparatus, I knew that I was going into a hazardous atmosphere. But you still got a job to do. You know, you can't think twice about it.
After 72 grueling hours of battle, the foam-drenched firefighters smother the blaze. The cloud of poisonous smoke that hangs over Savannah begins to thin. The fire crews are exhausted but relieved. Now, the Coast Guard's National Strike Force must begin the hazardous job of cleaning up the toxic sludge all around the tanks. By dusk, a plan is devised to raise giant tents over the toxic spill to contain the hydrogen sulfide gas while they clean up. But 3 days later, strong winds damage the tents and blow them to the ground. So the residents of the nearby communities must still remain at evacuation shelters. Joanna and the others now have new worries.
We calmed down for a short period of time, knowing that the fire was out, but then hearing about all the chemicals, we started wondering, well, what's going to happen when we go back into our homes?
At last, the Coast Guard gets the upper hand and the cleanup resumes. Joanna watches the crews remove the remaining chemical sludge from around the tanks.
To observe these people working and seeing what these men were having to experience was very scary. It was like watching a science fiction movie because we didn't know whether we were in danger or whether we were safe.
Finally, after a month-long cleanup effort, the Coast Guard and city officials declare the hydrogen sulfide level in the air is safe. The residents of Oak Tree are permitted to return home. An investigation by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms concluded that a valve used to both fill and empty the tank at the Powell Duffryn storage facility was left open. This allowed turpentine fumes to escape and make contact with an electrical switch. A spark then ignited the fumes. Storage tanks are now required to have separate valves to control the flow in and out of a tank. And after the accident, the Savannah Fire Department appointed Chief Steve Miller to increase the size of its hazardous materials team.
Since we can't stockpile everything that we need, we formed an alliance with the businesses and industries in the Chatham County area. We are now better equipped with information about the chemicals that are stored, where they're stored, how they're stored. We are much better prepared to handle any future chemical emergencies.
Fire Captain Tony Faust says he is proud to have been able to help his community, and he admires the team effort of his fellow firefighters and the Coast Guard.
I'll never forget Powell Duffryn because of the volume of fire spewing out of this tank, and with the Coast Guard coming in, they have teams that deal with this on a regular basis. Actually helped our community deal with this a little more effectively.
Captain Faust says he hopes never to experience a toxic fire of this magnitude again. But he knows that because of this incident, the Savannah Fire Department is now equipped to handle the worst.